Today's episode is with Make Kurtz, the founder of Mike's Hot Honey. We talked about his founding story of how he took his product from the back of a pizzeria into a multi-million-dollar condiment company. We talked about his founding stories, his collaboration efforts, sales, and much, much more. I hope you guys love this podcast as much as I enjoyed the conversation. Let's go. This week's episode is brought to you by Swevin, a co-working space in the heart of Hoboken with skyline views. We appreciate you, Swevin, for this awesome, sick podcast studio. Now, let's get into the podcast.
You know where you are!
This is the Outliers Podcast. Let's go! Cheers, brother.
Cheers.
Mr. Mike's Hot Honey himself. Welcome to the Outliers Menu Podcast, big dog.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, man. Where are you based out of right now?
So our office is in Greenpoint, Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
I live in Williamsburg, right behind Peter Luger.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm like 30 feet from Peter Luger.
Just smelling steak every day.
I see them hauling the steaks off the truck into like the dry aging room.
Yeah?
Yeah, in the morning.
How long you been living there for?
I've been there for a couple years. Before that, I was in Greenpoint. Had a sweet spot, like it was like a block and a half from the office, super convenient. But I had to move out on short notice. There was a little situation with my landlords. They
to say the least.
Yeah, there was a whole situation there, and they ended up selling the property, and the new people that bought it didn't want a tenant, so
no, that's annoying.
Move out. Yeah.
But then you moved, so it's all good. What else you been up to, man? How's everything going?
Oh, man, I just got back from San Diego.
Oh, yeah?
I was there for work for this thing called the Flavor Experience. I was out there experiencing some flavor. It was cool. It was it's like a trade show for suppliers and R&D chefs from the top 200 chains. So they bring out like R&D people from all of these big chains. It's like Popeyes, Subway, Burger King, places like
wow.
that. And they make sure there's an even amount of R&D folks and suppliers. So we were invited to attend this year, and it was pretty awesome. It was like, I hate to say it like this, but it was like shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah.
I mean, everywhere you look, there was somebody from one of the big chains, and you're not like exhibiting like you would normally do at a trade show where you're just doing samples. You're actually doing like activities and seminars and panel discussions with these people. So you kind of get to like hang out with them and build a relationship with them over the course of a few days. And yeah, we got some irons in the fire.
Hell yeah, bro. And I think it's also cool to like probably finally be invited in something like that. It's like, all right, now I'm invited to the big boys. Like obviously you've been like on the rise as an absolute rocket ship. But being in the room with all of those like heavy hitters like that, it probably makes it way easier to build relationships and like these potential dream collaborations.
Oh yeah,
and you're talking to them directly. It's not like you have to like go through the email, cold calling bullshit, trying to find out who's in charge of McDonald's this, Burger King over here, Popeyes, etc. It's like this is our opportunity right now.
Yeah, and we do like some of the big restaurant shows, like the National Restaurant Show in Chicago, and that's a great show. But there's a lot of riffraff, and even when you find one of these people who's a really big, like, key decision maker, you're probably not going to have more than, like, 30 seconds with them. And everybody's trying to get a piece of them. So they don't, like, a lot of times they'll turn their badge around so people don't know who they are. Yeah. So people don't bother them. So this was, like, people had their guard down at this thing. So that was cool. And, San Diego's nice. It's like a lot more chill than L.A., no traffic. We have a great partner restaurant there called Tribute Pizza. That's like it's in an old post office in San Diego. It's been there for about 8 years. They've been using our product on the menu since I think maybe like they started out there making their own, and then I showed up with a knife and I pressured them, and now they're using our product. But they've been using our product.
You've been showing the Brooklyn like the energy right there.
Sometimes you gotta strong arm people, but. No, I'm just kidding. They're awesome though. They're like a block and a half from the farmers market, and in San Diego, like the farmers market's incredible. Like the tomatoes they're getting over there.
Oh yes, the amusement park for farmers market, dude. Like that's the farmers market. Is that culture?
So I'm like sitting there. I went there in the morning. I was dropping some product off because I was gonna fly back. I didn't have I couldn't, I'm not taking product back with me. So I was leaving leftover product at the restaurant, sitting at the bar, and Matt, the owner of the restaurant, he disappears. He's like, "You want a coffee?" I'm like, "Sure." He disappears, and I'm chit-chatting with somebody, and like 30 minutes later, he comes back with a breakfast sandwich for me on an everything bagel. I'm like, "Where'd you get the bagel?" He's like, "I made it." I'm like, "You made it? What are you talking about? This is a pizzeria." He's like, "I made it." This is the type of guy he is. He just like makes things from scratch. Made the dough,
That's faster than I've ever heard anyone bake a bagel right there.
He boiled it, fired it in a I think he might have used, I don't know if he used he might have already had that
Some dough or whatever and just chopped it up.
They do focaccia in a big wood burning.
What restaurant is this?
It's called Tribute Pizza in San Diego. Great.
Why, they have a bunch of them? Bunch of locations? Just one?
Not the sort of thing that could ever be scaled because everything there is like from scratch. It's like you would never be able to scale that up, but it's a special place.
And what's cool about what you're doing is like you get to talk to all of these walks of life, from major wholesalers to big time chains, and then just the chefs of the world, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Which is honestly why I'm even doing this podcast, bro. I get to like talk it up to as many people as I possibly can in the food and beverage game.
Yeah. You get to meet a lot of people.
Yeah, man. Sure. And then so let's take it back to day one. I know that you start with Paulie G's, right? Like, let's talk about how Mike's Hot Honey actually started.
Okay, so I got to go back to college. So I grew up in Amherst, Massachusetts. So I'm not a New Yorker. I've been living on enemy territory for now 20 years. Mm-hmm. But so I grew up in Amherst, college town. My parents actually met in Brazil in the 1960s. And so I had this connection to Brazil, and my dad was fluent in Portuguese, and I was studying Portuguese in college. And my junior year of college, I studied abroad at a university in northeastern Brazil. And I, on a weekend trip, went to a little national park with some friends. We went hiking, and we were camping like every night on the trail, just eating like rice and beans. And on the 5th day of the hike, we descended in this little valley. And it's this isolated valley where there's like one dirt road that goes in and out. And the people that live there are there. And then the transient people there are really like mostly like hikers who hike in, and then they're there for a couple of days and they leave. It was a beautiful valley. And in this valley, we found a tiny little pizzeria, only 2 types of pizza. And they had jars of honey with whole chili peppers steeping in them for drizzling on the pizza. So I tasted it and I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. And it wasn't very hot, but the combination of the honey and the chili peppers kind of like piqued my interest, and it was something I kept on thinking about. And then a year later, I got back to the States. I was a senior in college, and I was like, how can I make this, but make it hotter and find a way to like do a true honey infused with chili peppers, not a honey based sauce. So I wanted it to be an actual like pure honey infused with chili peppers, not really cut with anything. So I started experimenting in my apartment my senior year of college, and I came up with a recipe. And I came up with the name Mike's Hot Honey. It was like day one. The day I made the recipe was also the same day I came up with the name. My friend was like, "What's that?" And I was like, it's Mike's Hot Honey. And the name just stuck, and it was just a hobby for like 6 or 7 years. I got a job the day of my college graduation I got a call the day of my college graduation that had a job in New York selling records for a record label. It was an entry-level record sales job. This is 2005, so I caught the very tail end of the golden age in the music business when people are still buying CDs.
Yeah.
And so I moved to New York like a week later, and I started working in the music business. And all the while I was making the honey just as a hobby, but it was like I'd bring some in, we'd have it in the break room at the record label, and we'd take it to Popeyes and shit, and like people knew what it was who were like, friends, family, or colleagues. They knew what it was, but that was it for like a while. And then I was making a lot of pizza. This is like fast forward to like 2010, making a lot of pizza at home. And I read about Paulie G when he was like, he was profiled on Sliceblog, which was part of Serious Eats. Sliceblog no longer exists, but it was like the website online where everybody went to learn about how to make better pizza. It was like this big resource of information. And so they profiled Paulie G when he was he was still in Jersey, and he had built a wood-burning oven in his backyard, and they said in the article that he was going to go open a restaurant in Brooklyn. So when he first opened, I went there, and he comes by every table in the restaurant. Anybody who's been to his restaurant knows, like, you can't dine there without him stopping by the table. His saying is schmooze or you lose. That's like his thing. So that's his mantra. So he had quit his day job at age 57 and opened Paulie G's, and there had been a fire on election night 2008, the night that Obama was elected. There had been a fire in the restaurant that occupied the space before him, so he found this spot that was like just burnt out. But it was in this little corner of Greenpoint. There wasn't a lot going on there at the time, but he could see sort of that this was like a neighborhood that was going to be on the rise and didn't really have any pizza like that was wood-fired pizza at the time. And there wasn't a lot of Neapolitan-style pizza in New York at that time. Like, it wasn't heavily saturated. So he opened the restaurant. I ate there. I met him, and he was like, you seem like you're really interested in making pizza, because I kept on asking about his dough recipe, his ovens. He's like, would you like to become an apprentice here? So I started going in after my day job, learning how to make pizza, work the oven, dough prep. I was salad boy. Finally, I was fast enough that he put me on a dinner shift. I started working there at night, and I brought in a bottle of my honey for him to try, which was, had the name, had the recipe, but no packaging. And he was like, what's this? And I was like, try it on a pizza. He tried it on hot sopressata pie, and he was like, this is awesome. Can you make it for the restaurant? So I started making it one batch at a time, like 1 gallon at a time in the back of the pizzeria. That's summer of 2010. And it just became a hit. And people were like lining up. It was like a 2-hour wait, not just for that pie, but just to eat at the restaurant. But the restaurant was taking off. That particular menu item was taking off. And where the pizzas are made at Paulie G's is open to the floor of the restaurant. So we call it the pizza theater. So you could see people and their reactions to tasting the product. And everybody's having the same reactions over and over again. So I'm watching this, like, while I'm making pizzas. And I'm like, I think this thing might have legs. And people started asking me, like, are you the honey guy? Where can we buy this stuff? And I wasn't selling it. I started selling little pint containers out of the back of the pizzeria. And then eventually, November 2010, my best friend from childhood, who was a graphic designer, he designed the original packaging, and I started selling bottles off the bar November 2010 at Paulie G's. Those are the first bottles of Mike's Hot Honey ever sold.
It's wild that you had this hobby for that many years. It was just like a fun thing you had, and like it was just almost for your own pleasure along with like your friends and family. It's like you just had it in your back pocket every time you went to eat and things like that, and just bring it to your boys' like cookout or anything like that.
I mean, it was literally
just like that passive thought.
I made it for myself, just to eat on pizza. I never even thought about it as something you might put on like chicken or other stuff. I was purely making it for pizza because I've always been into pizza. My friend's family growing up owned a pizzeria, so I was around pizza a lot. And so I thought of it as like a pizza condiment. Mm-hmm. And, my friends would joke, oh, maybe this could be a thing someday, and like I had one friend, he's like, I think this could be like $1 million business at one point. I'm like, this year I think we're going to do like close to $45 million in revenue.
That's wild, bro.
So,
and I feel like you're just scratching the surface too on another level.
We're in 6% of pizzerias, I think 6-7%.
Wow,
so we have a lot of room to grow. There's
absolutely,
and that's really just on one product.
What's beautiful about Mike's Hot Honey is it's becoming its own. Like, you own a condiment, dude. It's literally like the ketchup, ranch, barbecue sauce, Mike's Hot Honey.
Well, we're the original creator of the category, but there are other. There's a lot of other brands that are getting into it. Heinz made one. I think Frank's Red Hot made one. There's a lot of private label, like supermarkets that'll make their own sort of white label hot honey. Trader Joe's has one.
So you really just, now it's probably just like, all right, now we just need to move faster or to build the brand equity more? Like,
it's about building the brand. It's about building the brand because that's what's real. That's what people can hold on to. And so far, we've had success doing that. I mean, like, you know this firsthand. Like, our restaurant partnerships are a big driver of brand awareness for the product. And it's actually like, I think our revenue is roughly like 40% food service, 60% retail. So it's not just like, these food service partnerships are not just like a cute little thing we do. This is like a serious stream of revenue for us, and a big driver of brand awareness, and people have an experience, like they're eating the Beast thing, and then they go into, Whole Foods, and they see us on the shelf, and they remember the product from that experience, having it on a bagel sandwich, and then they pick up the product and take it home. So like that is how a lot of people find out about us.
And what's crazy too is like the fact that how did you establish the brand identity of Mike's Hot Honey to be put on other menus? Because it's very unique, right? Like, there's no other condiment that I have on my menu. Well, I make 95% of them. Let's say I have a restaurant and I'm using barbecue sauce. I'm not using the brand's name, barbecue sauce. You know what I mean? But Mike's Hot Honey, you do. And you see it on the menu, which is fucking sick, obviously, on your side of things. And I just think it's super unique. Like, how did that come about? Was it like created authentically, or?
Yeah, it kind of happened naturally in the beginning, and now we're very intentional about that. But like in the beginning, like Paulie just put it on the menu, Mike's Hot Honey. Yeah. At one point, I remember he tried to convince me to change the name to Mike's Spicy Honey because he was worried that somebody was going to think it was like temperature hot. I'm like, who the fuck thinks it's gonna be like? If you think that we're somehow keeping the honey temperature hot, like, you got to be crazy. So,
yeah, take a hike.
I was like, that's not like, it's been at that point. It had already been Mike's Hot Honey for like 7 years.
Yeah,
like, I was like, this is what it is, Paulie. Take it or leave it. Like, I'm not changing the name. So. Yeah, so he had it on his menu, and then I think like that got replicated. Like other pizzerias who wanted the product, I think, they thought it was like a cool thing, and they wanted to call it out by brand name because like they wanted to show that it was like the authentic original brand. And then as time has passed, like, I got to give credit to my food service team. Like they work really hard to make sure that we're getting called out by name on the menu. Like, we're following a similar path. Following a similar playbook to like what like Budweiser will do in terms of like on-premise signage in restaurants and bars. Like, we have a whole suite of signage, from neon signs to LED signs, metal beveled signs, pennants. So like when restaurants are using the product, we want to get signage up so that people see us on the menu, they see the brand somewhere on signage, and then they remember us when they're in the supermarket. And like, with big chains, when we're working like with big chains, we try to we know that like consumers know our brand and they have positive brand affinity. So like, we know that it benefits the restaurant if they call us out by brand name, and if they're paying for the original product, they should benefit that way. So they should call us out. It makes sense for them. They can charge usually they can command a premium for it if they're using the original product in the category. And I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of like developed that way. But you're right. It is pretty rare to...
Very rare. It's like Sriracha. Sriracha is another good comp, I would say, to it, Well,
Sriracha is not the brand, though. Hoi Fong is the brand.
Interesting. So it's not even a good comp, then.
Sriracha is just the condiment. So, like, I'm trying to think of what else is on there. I think you see Malden salt on menus.
Yeah.
And that's...
Or like back in the day with delis, Boar's Head. Now it's not really as advertised. So when you started selling them, you were just selling them like, a bottle at a time at Paulie's, right? Then in the beginning.
Well, I was bartering with Paulie, so I needed a commercial kitchen to make my product.
Okay.
And he was closed on Mondays. So I was using the kitchen on Mondays to production runs, and I was trading him honey in exchange for kitchen space. Nice.
And then when did it become? Did he invest early or no?
No.
Wow. How much do you think he regrets that?
Sorry, Paulie. Sorry.
Was it just straight up like organic, like all you in the beginning for a long time?
I was a one-man operation the first 5 years.
From 2010 to 2015?
Yeah. And
Whoa.
That was, I personally Yeah, I personally made every single bottle, capped every cap, labeled every label, did all the distribution, just, driving around New York, making deliveries, shipping stuff to places out of state, shipping all my mail order. I had a website where I was taking mail orders. It was like one page. It was like the most basic website, but that's all you need, you don't, it's like people liked what was in the bottle. Mm-hmm. Like, once I slapped a brand on it, then it got even more powerful. But even before that, people just liked what was in the bottle.
Liquid gold.
There was no, without any branding, people liked the flavor. And that's, I think, what's driven a lot of this is just, people like the combination of sweet and heat. People like something that is pure, like pure honey with chili peppers. It's not it's not it's not some sort of hot sauce mixed with honey. It's not cut with anything. It's like a pure product that's simple. There's no additives, and it just tastes good. And honey and chili peppers, two of nature's most unique and wonderful things. They're truly special ingredients, and it just turns out that
combining those two things becomes unbelievable sweet heat. Some sweet fuego. And
I'll say this is kind of under the surface this entire time, but people are addicted to sugar.
Yeah.
And this is not intentional, but I recognize that this is probably happening. People are addicted to sugar, and our product gave people permission to pour sugar all over foods that they previously were not putting sugar on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People were not pouring sugar
and in the most natural form, too.
Yes, but it's still sugar.
Yeah.
So it's I think that's definitely part of what's driven the growth of the category at large. It's just now people can put sugar on their pizza. They could put sugar on their chicken sandwich. They could put sugar on their bagel sandwich. And it's they were getting sugar in ketchup before, but not quite in the same way as honey.
That's true. How about, so from I'm so curious about your steps from Paulie's to the next step of when it actually started becoming an actual business.
Yeah.
What took you that step? What was the next step after that?
So, scaling up production was the biggest inflection point for the growth of the company. And so even in the first year of selling this stuff just off the bar at Paulie G's, I had press. I was in Esquire magazine,
oh shit,
best of the year issue, and I was in Savor and HuffPost back when the HuffPost was actually a really big deal. I mean, no offense to the HuffPost, it's not what it was 20 years ago.
Before it was bought.
Yeah, they I was on Liza DeGia. She does this show on Channel 25 in New York, which is local cable access. It's called Food Curated, where she profiles different food entrepreneurs, and she profiled me. And she came to my apartment. I was making a batch in my apartment, and she filmed it and put it on Channel 25. But that's local cable access in New York City. So even though it's local cable access, you're reaching
still hyper focus. Yeah.
So I got some good press early on, and then there was just right off the bat there was demand. People were asking me for it. I couldn't keep up. So I was really struggling to produce to order, but then also come up with a way to scale up production. And that took me 3.5 years of research and working with food scientists, and there was no template for how to do it. And I kept on striking out with honey packers. I recognized that I needed to work with somebody who was dealing with honey and had honey-specific equipment. But all these honey packers didn't want to work with me because if they ran my product on their line and then cleaned it and then ran pure honey, but there was some residual chili pepper that they
cross-contamination,
missed. They could cross-contaminate a whole run, and honey's so precious, it's so expensive, that was just too big of a risk. So nobody would work with me. So it was I just kept on striking out. I'm telling you, people want this product, and it's going to be big. But people just didn't see the vision for it, and I kept on striking out. 3.5 years of looking for production partners.
Damn, 3.5 years. And during the 3.5 period, you were just chefing it up and at Paulie's?
Making it, yeah.
Wow.
Working in the pizzeria at night, making batches of honey. eventually he opened 7 days a week, and I could only go in at night, so I was doing production runs from midnight to 8 a.m.
Fuck, bro.
It was hardcore. Honey's fucking heavy.
Yeah,
Chili peppers, like, you get the shit on your skin, like, it burns. Like, I don't even, like, I got some crazy stories about that. Like, chili pepper seeds in your eye. Like, I still, like, yeah, I mean, it's like.
You still have PTSD thinking about those days.
It's like crazy. My Ruben, who was my UPS driver at the time, who was, like, delivering the honey that I would order, like, I would get it in the, like, 60-pound pails. And he was in his last year at UPS. Like, he was like, had one foot out the door. He was going to retire. And he fucking hated me in the beginning. Like, because, like, he was just like, shout to Ruben, because, like, you know, he would haul, like, I would get, like, 600 pounds delivered at a time. And for, like, a guy who was, like, on his way out of UPS.
Yeah,
like,
so he's not trying to do that.
Like, you know, like.
He's like, I'm too old for this shit.
Like, this fucking guy again. Like,
the fucking honey guy.
But you know, like, he was awesome, and I would haul it. Like, you know, I was storing product in my apartment, so I had to, like, take the pails upstairs, then take them to the pizzeria and, like, haul them around, and it's fucking heavy, man.
What kept you so driven and locked in? Because there's probably so many points of time you could have just been like, dude, is this even worth it?
People wanted the product. There was demand. Like, I knew that if I could scale up, I was going to have a viable business. So that's what kept me motivated. And then finally, this honey packer from Pennsylvania, she was like, listen, I know this guy. He's a honey producer from upstate New York. He's got a bottling line in Jersey. You should talk to him. So I called up Grant Stiles, and you know, he's like, I got a little bottling line in Fords, New Jersey. I was like, cool. I'm gonna come out and check it out. He's like, listen, when you get out there, like, he's like, I don't want you to be alarmed. It's not gonna look like much, but I promise you, we can do big volume out of this space. So, like, I get there, and I'm like, where's the production line? And it's, like, in his garage attached to his house.
No way.
So I'm like, this is the production line? Like, I'm imagining, like, a whole factory,
of course.
You know?
We've all been to those factories. Like, what is, like, a one-car garage, two-car garage?
Yeah. So it's, like, this tiny little garage attached to his house. And I'm like, this is, like, 20 minutes south of Newark. I'm like, all right, like, I don't think this is going to work. He's like, listen, I promise you, like, he's like, I don't believe in this product. He's like, I'll pack shit in honey if you pay me. Mm-hmm. He's like, who wants chili peppers and honey? Nobody. But if you pay me, I'll do it, and I'll help you figure it out. So he helped me figure out how to, you know, scale up production. And it was a bunch of trial and error, and we kind of had to, like, MacGyver this production line. And we did it, and then, like, a few years later, we got an order for 4,000 Walmart stores, and he filled that order like 2 weeks early out of that same garage.
No way.
So he was truly a man of his word. He delivered big time, and now he has like a big stainless steel modern production line that's 2 blocks like away from the original garage.
And you remain at your word too, because you were like, dude, I'm going to sell this thing. Like, it's going to be a rocket ship. So you guys almost like kind of banked on each other.
Yeah, we grew together. He would come, so like, I would drive out to Ford's and fill up my car with products and drive back. But then the only time I could meet him in the city, he would only come in the city on Saturday mornings, like, just fucking ass early, like, super early, because he hates traffic.
Yeah.
So he would only come in and make deliveries to, like, all the Whole Foods, because he was selling his pure honey to Whole Foods. So he was coming in Saturday mornings at, like, 6 in the morning. And if I wanted to avoid a trip out to Ford's from Brooklyn, I had to, like, come meet him. So I would, like, meet him by Columbus Circle, by the Whole Foods at Columbus Circle, and, like, park behind his truck and just, like, fill the back of my car up with cases on Saturday mornings at, like, 6 in the morning. And, like, you know, I, like, roll out of bed. My girlfriend's like, what are you doing? I was like, I got to go meet the honey guy. Like, she's like, again? I'm like, yes. So I, like, leave at 6 in the morning and then come back and, like, go back to sleep. But, like, it would save me a trip out to Jersey.
Yeah.
So it was tough, and then, but like once I got the production off my plate and scaled up, I was able to, like, start working with distributors. It kind of unlocked
relationships,
wider distribution, yeah. And my business partner Matt came on board in year 5, and he had gone to business school at Northwestern. He had some experience working at Wrigley in Chicago, And he had a lot of the business experience that I lacked that sort of complemented my skill set. And we started, growing the business together.
What was his skill set that you feel like you lacked the most?
Well, I mean, he went to business school. I mean,
Yeah.
he helped me, fix my books and helped me with the accounting and the back end and the finances and projections and, basically helped me groom the business to take on investment. I mean, we needed capital to grow the business. We needed cash flow to fill these big orders because honey is so expensive. So we tightened up the business and then started looking for investors, and we struck out with a lot of people. And in year 7, that's when we took on our first round of investment. It's a family office out of Boston called Fifth Down Capital, and we had struck out with all these places, and we had started working with a pizza chain out of D.C., And Pizza.
Yeah, I remember them.
And their investors were at an And Pizza board meeting, and they saw a bottle of Mike's Hot Honey on the table, and they were like, "What's this?" And then they looked us up and saw that we were trying to raise, and reached out, and so they became our partners in the business, and that was 7 years in.
So it really was like this 20-year-old overnight success. Like it really was like and I'm saying overnight success is in a facetious way because you just see it all over the place now, but the foundation of Mike's Hot Honey took a long time to get there.
Took a long time, man. I mean, I've been making it for 20 years.
Yeah.
People are like, "Oh, you blew up overnight." I'm like, not really.
Yeah, bro. I've been grinding, just doing your own thing.
Yeah.
When you were doing the manufacturing with, what was his name, the one with the garage?
Grand Styles.
So when you were doing with Grand Styles, how did you make sure that your hot honey was your own and proprietary and scared? Like, at any point in time you were like mindful and being like cautious, being like, this guy could just take my ingredients and just run with it?
Well, I had to sign an NDA.
Okay. So you just made sure you had a locked-in NDA.
Yeah.
And then after that, when did you get into like major retailers, or what was your first steps in your sales approach? Was it going to restaurants? Did you have like a roadmap, sales roadmap, going to pizzerias first, or did you want to get into grocery stores?
Yeah.
What was that strategy like?
So it started out, selling bottles off the bar at Paulie's and doing mail order. Then I started picking up like specialty food stores, like cheese shops, butcher shops, started picking up the product. One Pig's Fly, which is a bakery chain out of Boston, they were early on. They picked me up and put me in all their bakeries. So it was like specialty at first, specialty retail, like Sweet Chick Chicken and Waffles. They picked me up pretty early on.
They were hot too back then. Like Sweet Chicks, they were like a really big brand.
Yeah, so they, it was kind of like tastemaker restaurants, pizzerias, and specialty stores in the beginning. And then the first supermarket was, I got to give a shout to my local C-Town in Long Island City in Queens. They were actually the first supermarket to ever sell a product. They were right on the corner of my block. Now it's a Key Food. It's on 44th Drive and 23rd Street in Long Island City. But the first like really big supermarket to take it was Whole Foods, 3rd and 3rd in Gowanus, which was the first Whole Foods store in New York City, in Brooklyn. And they took me in 2014 when I was a one-man operation. I had just scaled up production. But like back then, before they were bought by Amazon, it was a little bit more specialized from store to store. So it was like easier to just get into stores. So like once you got approved, you were then basically approved to get your product into any store in the Northeast region. So once I was in the system, I knew I could go to any store that was a Whole Foods in the Northeast region, and I started going one by one to all the stores in New York City. So I'd go into the store, I'd bring a free case of product. Hey, where's the honey buyer? Track down the honey buyer. Hey, I got this product. If you scan it, it's in the system. If you give me like one bottle wide on the shelf, I'll pack out the shelf for you. You can have this whole case for free. I'll demo the product, And so one by one, I started opening up all the stores in New York City doing that. I was personally going there, just demoing the product, giving them free cases, and that's how I opened up Whole Foods. And now we're nationwide in Whole Foods. But, back then it was like, it was like 12 stores in the city. Then we got the regional buy-in for all the stores in the Northeast region. Then we got the national buy-in for all the stores. So it took a while. But yeah, Whole Foods was the first store. But like in the beginning, like real early on, like I didn't even have seals on my bottles. I didn't have I hadn't have product liability insurance. And like honestly, man, like stores just want products to sell. Like, and it's funny, like Murray's Cheese, like they were independent at the time. They hadn't yet been bought by Kroger, but like Murray's Cheese put me on the shelf. I didn't have seals on my bottles. Like they didn't care. Mm-hmm. They were like, this product is getting pressed. It's hot. People are going to buy it. Like they didn't care. They were like, it's going to sell. So like, I don't know. I think there's this like mystique that like people have like, oh, like, you know, if it's on the shelf in a store, that means that like, you know, it's like up to code and everything. Mm-hmm. It's like, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Like this could have just been made in the back of somebody's house. You know, like you don't really know. So I don't know if that scares people, but that's the truth. Like, I mean, the good thing about my product is it's like now we are SQF certified. We have a HACCP plan. We meet the highest levels of food safety standards, so we have to do that in order to work with like the biggest chains in the world. I mean, we have a breakfast sandwich with Dunkin, which I have to give you credit for that one because, you know, it's tastemakers like you guys that put us on the map in that category, you know, breakfast sandwiches. And then, you know, eventually it trickles down and the chains catch up, you know, and they just put us on the menu in 9,000 Dunkins on a breakfast sandwich, bacon, egg, and cheese. And that's wrapping up this week, I think.
Hell yeah, bro. I'm happy that I inspired big old Dunkin' Donuts to finally catch up on our shit.
You were early, man.
I was early, man, but it was sick, dude. I mean, but it also helped me too, bro. I've sold millions of dollars worth of bee stings.
That's crazy.
Yeah, man. Like literally. It's wild. Just for like one fucking condiment. And I threw so many specials on the menu. And that's what I would always do. I would always just put a special on the board, see what sticks. And if it sticks, figuratively and literally, I'll keep it on the menu. If not, I just kept on rotating it.
It was sticky.
And it was sticky, baby, and it's still sticky. This thing's still a rocket. It's still awesome. And it's helped us a lot, you know, it's like our Big Mac now. It's really cool. And it's cool to see, you know, other brands doing this similar things. And going back to even what you said about the grocery stores and all of that. And I feel like people, the younger entrepreneurs or the aspiring entrepreneurs into creating CPG products, I think it's just so intimidating to them rather than just focusing on just like almost, I feel like your naive confidence almost helped you too, because it was like every time there was a barrier of entry, you have to just figure out that obstacle to push through that, right? Like when you get to the grocery store and they finally said something about your seal, you're like, all right, well, I guess I gotta figure out this sealing situation. Right?
I mean, I think there's this illusion that people who are in these positions of power actually like know what they're doing.
Yeah, dude.
And there are like real like experienced professionals out there, but there's a lot of people that are just like faking it till they make it. And I think
like most are, right? I feel like they are, dude.
Are just faking it. You know, like, people don't really know what they're doing. Like nobody really knows. Like it's not like there's some like magical thing. You like eventually you get to this place where you actually know what you're doing. Like people don't know what they're doing. They're just everybody's just doing their best, you know, and I think that's like for entrepreneurs, like it's you can toil away at home trying to dial in a business plan until it's perfect, but if you just put something into the market,
yeah,
that as imperfect as it may be, like you're gonna get feedback, and then you're small and nimble, and you can adjust on the fly, and it's sometimes it's easier to do that than to just be in your own head, like trying to perfect something before you put it out. Like it's. I would urge people just, if you're thinking about launching a product, put it into the market. Find a testing ground. I had the pizzeria, you know. Find some sort of place where you can get people to taste the product or try the product, get feedback, adjust, and move forward. But, like, this idea that, like, you're not ready for the market, like, it's just do it, you know. Just fucking, like, just go for it, and you'll learn on the fly. You learn more by doing, I think, than just like being in your own head.
I agree with that, man. I think, honestly, I'm even guilty of some. I feel like the older I've gotten, the more analysis paralysis I end up having. Like, even though some people think that I'm just doing shit, there's so many things in the background that I am questioning all the damn time. I feel like sometimes it's like, it's just too much. Because I feel like the more, quote unquote, established you are, you're more cautious, you're learning from your mistakes and almost like, I don't know, just overthinking every step. And I think sometimes you just, like you just said, you have to just bring back that naive confidence, that strength of just ambition, just be like, fuck it. Like, all the scenarios in your head are just all fake scenarios. There's fake narratives. Positive, negative, doesn't matter. Yeah. But actions speak louder than words. Like, as long as you keep on throwing something out there, you're going to see it. And you're going to learn from those mistakes that end up happening.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I made so many mistakes, you know? And I just, like, I'm super lucky to have this team around me that, like, I have found people who are far more talented than I am, who are specialized in different areas who've been able to help me grow the business. But, like, none of us have experience selling hot honey. Yeah. Like these are just, like, smart people who share our brand values, and that's kind of how we've been able to, like, build our team, is, like, find cool people who share our values, who are smart, and, like, we'll figure it out together. And yeah, I'm just lucky. Like, I have an amazing retail team who have brought some experience to the table, like how to roll products out to big box retail. I have an amazing food service sales team who are out there, like, pounding the pavement, visiting restaurants, activating Cisco opcos and distributor opcos all over the country, in different corners of the country. And, like, Michelle Lane, who runs our food service team, she hired me for my first job out of college at the record label. So I was able to hire her years later to work with me in the honey business. She had left the music business and started a restaurant with her husband, and then so she was already in the food business, and we kept in touch. And, you know, she runs an amazing team, you know, on the food service side, and, like, our ops team, like, we're pretty much, like, 100% on time and in full. Like, that is rare in our business, and we have gotten big contracts with restaurant chains just because of that. Like, just because it's an easy application, simple drizzle to any menu item, and they know that we're going to deliver 100% on time and in full. Like, there's no headaches. Like, just being operationally sound, like, will get you some deals.
How big is your team now?
So we're about 30 people. So it's ops, finance, retail sales, food service sales, marketing.
And your first big hire was your business partner?
Yep.
Finance side of things?
Yep. And then, but he was doing it all. He was, like, helping me with production in the beginning. Like,
all hands on deck at that time.
Yeah. So when we had our first meeting with Fifth Down Capital, there was this guy, Kent Spellman, who was a friend of Fifth Down, and he attended the meeting just as a favor to his buddy. And I remember him just telling me the story. He was like, I thought this was some bullshit. Like, he's like, but I was just doing it as a favor. And coming out of that first meeting with them, he was like, I also want to invest in the company, and I want to work for you full time, and I'll do anything. I'll take out the garbage. Like, just put anything on my plate and I'll do it. And Kenny's the type of guy that just can, like, figure anything out. He's just a smart person who, like, you throw anything at him and he'll figure it out. So, like, he was our first hire, and, you know, we hired a handful of people right in the beginning. So we had, like, maybe our team was, like, about, like, 5 people in the early days, and we started adding new people. We added Cheryl Smith, our VP of retail, and she started building out the retail team. We hired Michelle, and she started building out the food service team. And Kate Adams, our VP of marketing, she had worked with my business partner, Matt, at Wrigley. So she had some experience with brands, building brands at Wrigley. And so, like, we built out a really, really awesome team. And, like, we also have people like, you know, I think you met June.
Yeah, he's cool. That's good.
Yeah, like, June Madrano, like, he's an outside guy. Like, he's events manager on the marketing team, and he's constantly outside connecting with people, like, and connecting in a genuine way. And that's what we try to instill, like, this, like we try to do a lot of stuff in person. We stay very active with, like, in-person events, making real connections with people. I think a lot of brands, like, they focus a lot on the digital space, but they're not actually, like, getting people to taste their product in person, and they're not connecting. They're not doing, like, hand-to-hand business, and we try to do the hand-to-hand business is very impactful when you make a connection like that. So we try to. It's harder, but we try to do a lot of that.
I agree with that. I think sometimes people are too hyper-focused on the modern marketing, which you have to do.
Yeah, you have
to.
But
the low-hanging fruit is the guerrilla marketing tactics.
Yeah.
Like just pretending that your circle is the world. And like for you, when it comes to a CPG product, you're going to these tastings, and even if it's only one Whole Foods, you're still you're directly connecting with 100 people in that one day.
Yeah.
They're tasting the product, they're feeling that product. The other events and et cetera may be. The guerrilla marketing tactics are no one's doing it anymore almost.
Yeah, it's
almost
crazy.
It's almost like the old school marketing tactics are actually more beneficial sometimes than the modern one.
Well, the Mike Strike, the branded tricycle we have. I think you've seen it at Bagel Fest. So like we'll take that to any corner in Manhattan or Brooklyn. Like it doesn't matter. Like you're in New York City, you just catch people all day long in that thing, and it's like it's so simple, but you don't see any brands doing this.
It doesn't make any sense. It's like they're more focused on their big boardroom meetings rather than trying to figure out the next viral content, rather than sometimes like, dude, just go outside. You're going to talk to thousands of people every single day in that corner.
Yeah, and you don't need an event to be at even. Like we do Bagel Fest, we don't even need stuff like that. We just post up on a corner and just pass out samples, and like we do that all day long. And if we want to catch a certain type of person, we'll go to a specific area. So we will post up outside the Met, and like we know like people who are going to the Met, maybe they have a little bit more disposable income. Maybe there's like in the Venn diagram of like the overlap of like people going to like that museum, and people might have like extra bread to buy Mike's Hot Honey in the supermarket. Maybe there's like a little bit more of an overlap there than if. No offense, but then like posting up outside of like an Associated in like wherever, like you're gonna catch like
you're trying to go after your focus consumer, your ideal consumer.
Or if there's like a concert or something, we could post up a block away between where the subway is and where the concert venue is, and catch all the fans of that group.
You do that a lot.
We do that all the time, and it really works because we don't need events. We do events too, but we don't need events. We get the benefit of being in the New York metro area. Like that alone is such a huge leg up. Like if I was starting this company in like
Utah
Iowa,
or someone random, it
wouldn't have been the same. Yeah. I mean, you got all the national media right at your doorstep. You got all these people. All these retailers, they're all here, and our focus, like for a long time, was like, let's just own New York City. Like, let's go deep in the New York market before we go wide.
Mushroom out.
And now we're a national brand, but we focused like for a long time. We were like just focusing on Metro New York, like really just trying to like build out distribution in New York, retail and food service. And we were like, if we own New York, like.
You own the world, baby.
That's it.
Yeah. Just a hyper focus in that side of things. When you vet new people on your team, how do you go about finding talent?
All right, well, I'm going to put out the bat signal right now. We're hiring for a West Coast sales rep for our food service team. It needs to be based somewhere in the West Coast. We just look for people who are dynamic communicators, who are capable of like making a genuine connection with somebody in person. I think that's important. You got to share our brand values, have some humility. Like, I think that's the thing that is so cool about our brand. Like, everybody that's on our team is very humble. Like, everybody works hard. We all support each other. We all celebrate the wins together. But, like, nobody's too cool for school. Like, everybody is hustling, and there to support each other. So, humility, great communicator, can handle like hand-to-hand contact, like in-person contact, and just somebody who's smart, like who can learn. And I think with any small business, like you got to have people who are comfortable with ambiguity in their role, that are not so like rigid that they're not going to be able to help unload the truck, or like, oh, that's not part of my job, so I'm not going to do it. Like, you need people who are just like all hands on deck type people.
I think the early stages really creates the fundamentals of your culture too, because then it just compounds.
Yeah.
Then you obviously started the ride, and then you have your next hire, and then your next hire. Like you said, your first big hire. He was down to even take out the garbage. He was saying, obviously not literally, he's going to be your garbage guy, but like it seemed like the core culture of your team was like, one, if a problem arises, we got to figure it out. Number two, all hands on deck, no matter what happens, we got to make it happen. And it seems like everyone also has a passion for Mike's Hot Honey to like create better value for food and beverage businesses. And then obviously you want to see consumers being pumped about their day to day, put a smile on their face when they're consuming something.
Yeah, and it's like we're not saving the world. We're selling hot honey. So like I'd remind the team that sometimes people get stressed out about something. I'm like, it's just honey. Like we're not doctors. We're not lawyers. Like this is not like
life or death.
Yeah, like this is not that serious, you know. So we try to when Matt and I formed our partnership, when he came on board as my business partner, one of the first things we did was outline our values as a company, and those values kind of help guide you as you grow. And so whenever you get to a crossroads, you refer back to the values of the brand, and that helps you make a decision. And like one of the values that we have is like we care about family. We want to make sure all of our staff like have that support, that their families are good, that they have time to be with their families, that they have the flexibility to be with their families. And like that's a true like value of our brand, like putting value on family, putting value on community, making sure those are at the heart of a lot of the decisions we make. That like helps steer the ship.
I've heard that many times actually with outlier corporate executives or founders is the value proposition side of things. Because you're right, as the years progress and there's opportunities that come around to you, or you're dealing with an obstacle, you can just go back to those values to make a proper decision of what's next. And sometimes those founding principles kind of keep you like blinders on to focus on what the objective is.
Yeah, there's always going to be a fork in the road.
Yeah,
like when you're an entrepreneur, you're constantly hitting these forks in the road. And in retrospect, sometimes maybe at the time they felt like a much bigger deal than they actually were. But like it kind of like over time, like you get better at making these decisions. You get faster because you have more clarity about like what your brand stands for. Sometimes in the beginning you can write down those values, but until you like live it, it's not crystal clear. And then slowly it sort of just becomes more and more defined as you get deeper into the business.
What was you've done so many massive collaborations. What was your first big collaboration?
On the food service side?
Yeah. I feel like really just opened up the floodgate.
Yeah. Let me think. One of the first big ones. Well, I'd say the first like big chain that took us was Chopped, the salad chain, and that was a Mike's Hot Honey vinaigrette that they put on the menu, and I think that was like maybe 2015 or 2016. That was pretty early on. Mod Pizza was probably the first big pizza chain that had us on the menu. That's like over 500 locations nationwide. It's like fast casual and Neapolitan. Those were some of the early ones. But now, I mean, we're on the menu at DUNKIN. Like, it doesn't get too much bigger than that. Like, we have the scale to work with anybody globally. Production capacity is not an issue. We've got the personnel that are experienced enough to like handle those
big accounts,
those big accounts, and the operations to deliver on time and in full. And that really like it's what you need. And now like we're getting more efficient at how we work with all these brands. Like we've done enough of them at this point that we know it works. We have a proven track record. We can show that to other prospects. We're like, hey, like this concept really worked, or the way this was integrated into the menu really worked, or this type of signage really worked. And like, so we've tested in enough like...
You made enough mistakes and wins and losses.
Yeah, so we know what works, what doesn't work, and so having that data now really like helps when you're talking to like some of these bigger accounts.
How did the Dunkin' Donuts collaboration happen?
So that one, that was like 5 years in the making. When we first started testing with them, we tested out a build in 2019. I don't think I can say I can't divulge all of the details on that, but I'll just say that, like, you know, we tested a build in 2019 that got upended by the pandemic. Then we tested another build.
Build meaning what?
A menu item.
Okay.
So usually these big chains, like when they're not just going to launch like a new menu item without like rigorous testing. So like they'll test you in a select number of stores. You know, they'll do like focus groups, then they'll test it. If it gets past that, they'll test it in like a certain number of stores. If it gets past that, they'll test it in a larger number of stores. If it gets past that, they run it chain wide. So it takes a long time. But with Dunkin', like the hot honey bacon sandwich was a bacon, egg, and cheese on a brioche. That was our third menu item, so it took like 3 different tries before we got one that passed all the tests. And we had been pushing for that one because we were like, look, this is a proven winner. Like, you guys are an example of that. Mm-hmm. You know, like, we've got these tastemakers that have a hit with this flavor combination. Like, you should really try this out. And you know, once they tried it, it passed all the tests, and then you sort of negotiate, like, signage on premise, like how it's going to look on the menu, all of that stuff, and it rolls out. So it was like 5 years in the making.
Damn.
Yeah.
And then what's like the compensation to you is, you don't have to tell me like specific numbers, but like, do you just sell the product to them wholesale, or are you getting a royalty piece towards every single sandwich that sells? Like,
no, usually they're buying the product from one of our distributors.
Mm-hmm. But you're creating an opportunity for yourself, so it's still a huge win.
Yeah,
that's a wholesale account.
Yeah, so we're selling product to these restaurants through our distributor, and then of course, like, there's a lot of brand awareness that you gain from something like that by having even like Dunkin' has like digital menu boards with the 12-ounce bottle that you see on shelf at retail on their menu. So like, people are seeing that when they go into Dunkin', and that's 9,000 stores where you're like seeing that over and over again. Like, so that is super powerful for we see a bump in our retail sales when we have a collab like that.
And then how about is now your focus point licensing out Mike's Hot Honey to do collaborations like your grilled beans or the Mike's Hot Honey chips? Is that like a major focus point of yours right now?
It's definitely part of the sort of like total strategy. I mean, it's food service sales, retail sales, direct to consumer sales, and then licensed collaborations. And on the CPG licensed collabs, we did a hot honey Dijon. It was a Mike's Hot Honey Dijon mustard with the French Dijon company. That was like our first big one. They've been making Dijon since the 1700s. They were the official mustard maker for King Louis and Napoleon. Like, they have been in the game.
What a stat. That's their first influencer, dude.
Yeah.
Back in the day, King Henry.
No, if they were like early on. So
how does even a business stay alive since 1700s? It's crazy.
Well, they essentially created Dijon mustard. You know, like they were the first people making it.
Yeah.
But we had that, and then that was like Whole Foods and Amazon, and I think it's now like opened up for like full distribution for anybody who wants it. But we did that one, and then, you know, the Utz collab, the first Utz collab was a big one. That's like, Mike's Hot Honey Utz flavored potato chips, and that was their top selling partnership ever. It was supposed to be a temporary item. They made it permanent.
Wow.
then they rolled out the extra hot chips this summer. They rolled out the pretzels, and now we're working on a fourth SKU with them.
That's sick, dude.
And these are like, you know, we get a royalty, and that's a negotiation with the partner brand, and obviously we're advocating for them to put our bottle on the packaging because we know that that's going to help sell the product more. And we also know that, like, the stores that sell our Utz chips, the sales of our honey bottles increase. So we now have licensed collaborations in almost every aisle of the supermarket. We have a CPK frozen pizza. We're rolling out a frozen pizza with DiGiorno that has honey packets in it. I mean, it's crazy.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah, it's not delivery.
You're like Lil Wayne from 08, bro. Just doing collabs left and right, kid.
I haven't heard that one, but I'll take it, yeah.
And there's so many different avenues that you're going. Which one do you enjoy the most between food service, direct-to-consumer, wholesale, etc., licensing? Which one do you like the most, if you pick one?
It's the food service. It's the restaurants for me, because those are like the chances, like you get a chance to connect with like real people on the ground that are using their product and like getting it into people's mouths. And like also it's just cool to see. I mean, I'm blessed. Like, I get to try all these amazing things that different chefs like yourself create with my product. And I thought this was just going to be like a pizza condiment, and now people are using it on all sorts of things, and I get to go around eating it all. So it's kind of like, it's a blessing and a curse, because sometimes it's like you go into a spot and it's like your fifth pizzeria of the day, and they're like, here. And they put the slice in front of you, and it's like, it's like, I already have high cholesterol, so it's like I gotta watch out, but like I can't not eat it.
Yeah, you can't insult the guy.
Yeah,
you gotta like a customer at the same time, and he probably wants to talk about the exact same product you've already had millions of times.
Yeah, you gotta eat it, and usually it's really good, but like, you know, it's tough. Like sometimes like you just don't have room.
Yeah,
you still gotta eat. So like my doctor, he's like, yo, you gotta like watch out, like. You know, shout to Lipitor. I should be sponsored by Lipitor, honestly, because, like, they're keeping me going here. Like, because my doctor's like, you know, I inherited high cholesterol from my mom. She had high cholesterol. And, like, it's just like, you know, you can change your diet, you can change your exercise regimen, but that's only going to put a small dent in your cholesterol issues. So, like, really, you got to be on Lipitor. And I'm like, well, and he's like, really, you got to watch out with, like, all this pizza. And I'm like, dude, like, if I stop eating pizza, then I'm not going to have health insurance to, like, get my Lipitor prescription. You know, like, that's my job. I'm like, I don't think you understand. And he's like, well, you got to watch out. So I try to, like, you know, I'm trying to, like, when I'm not working, like, you know, I'm eating salads and, like.
With a hot honey vinaigrette?
I mean, not even, man. I was like, I had enough of that stuff. Like, I don't even. Like, I just try to eat really clean when I'm not on the job, because, like, a lot of my time is, like, in and out of fried chicken spots, you know, in and out of pizzerias all day long.
When you first launched it, and it's hard to look back that in the early stages, but did you ever anticipate it to being where it is today?
I never thought it was going to be like this. I mean, I knew that people liked the product, but I couldn't have imagined it was going to be, like, this crazy. I mean, it's like, it's just kind of taken on a life of its own, you know, and people really like what's in the bottle. Like, they like what's in the bottle. Strip away all the branding, all the collabs, all that stuff. They just like the taste, you know, and at the end of the day, that was always what I wanted. Like, I don't want to be somebody who's, like, trying to, like, trick people into buying a product that isn't that good or that they don't want. Like, I wanted to just manufacture a product that people liked organically, and, like, something that would just spread organically. And that's kind of like what's happened. It's like people just like what's in the bottle. We focus on production and ops and try to make a really great product. We stick to our lane. Like, all these licensed collabs are awesome because it extends the flavor into different categories.
Yeah.
Like, we got a cold smoked salmon coming out with Acme. We have a Mike's Hot Honey smoked salmon dip coming out with Acme. I think we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, you and I, for sure, talked about that.
We have a goat cheese that's Mike's Hot Honey flavored coming out with Montchev. I mean, we're working on stuff in every category of the supermarket now. So, like, but it allows us to just focus on what we do, and that's make hot honey. And our partners, they're the experts in potato chips and baked beans. And, like, the beans are hitting. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, these beans, like, you can eat them room temperature out the can. Like, it's, you don't even, like, I forgot. I have a burgundy can opener. I forgot it. But, like it's, like, you can straight up just eat them without even warming them up because of the flavor. Like, it just made sense with the baked beans. Like, it's already kind of like a sweet, savory profile, and then you add the honey to it, and it's like you get the sweetness first, a savory note from the beans, and then the heat hits on the back of your palate, and it's like...
It's the home run.
Yeah.
If you could pair Mike's Hot Honey with one item, what would it be?
I mean, so pizza is the original pairing, and I love it on pizza. And, like, you know, I think everybody knows, like pepperoni pizza, Mike's Hot Honey, like cup and char pepperoni, Mike's Hot Honey is, like, just, it's going to hit every time. But I, like, when I'm at home, goat cheese is, like, my jam. Like, just, like, straight up on goat cheese is so perfect because the cool creaminess of the goat cheese and then the sweet heat from the honey, the way it comes together, it's, like, it's just, like, the perfect bite. And that's what when I would do, like, demos at Whole Foods, I was always sampling it on goat cheese or ricotta. Just, like, you know, that cool creaminess combo with the hot honey really, really works. But, I mean, there's a lot of things, man. I mean, mixed into cocktails is really good. I think a lot of people never had that. Ice cream is crazy, like vanilla ice cream, butter pecan ice cream. It's like it's a flavor profile most people never tried. Like, there's a lot of things.
Do you have a collaboration at all with any mixologists or any cocktail stuff or ice creams?
We did a ice cream sundae with Cold Stone, and that was nationwide. And we've got a bunch of independent, and we did a flavor with Van Leeuwen, did a flavor with Ample Hills Creamery. A lot of, like, local ice cream spots have used us. Clementine's Creamery, St. Louis, got to shout them out. They were early on. But we've never done, like, a packaged ice cream. So any ice cream brands out there that want to fuck with us, like,
let's go.
Let's go. Let's put this shit in a pint. Ben & Jerry's. I actually know, I met Ben & Jerry because we both we're sponsors of the Crash Boys games, which is a big bike life event outside of Philly. And I've seen Ben & Jerry, they're always together.
No way.
Yeah. You know what's cool about Ben & Jerry? They don't shake hands. They only give hugs.
No way.
They will not shake your hand. They only hug. Only hug.
First time you met him, just gave you a big-ass hug?
Yes.
Do they give you, like, a warning before the hug? Or they're just like...
Yeah, that's like, no, we don't... You go in for the shake. And
yeah.
Like, no. Only give hugs. And, yeah, I was literally in a Ben & Jerry ice cream sandwich. Like, it was crazy. But, like, they, you know, I don't think they're that involved in, like, the flavor ideation anymore. But, like, you know,
I can just picture them just... Yeah, I could just picture them just walking around barefoot. They walking around barefoot at all or no? Just, like, super just hippie love?
Oh, dude, they're super cool. Like, you know, they pulled up to Chester, Pennsylvania. That's a small town, like, outside of Philly. Like,
yeah.
They didn't have to be there, but they have been there the last 2 years to support Crash Boys Games, which is a bike life event, which supports a lot of young kids who are getting into, like, riding bikes, doing tricks on bikes, popping wheelies, obstacle course, like all types of. It's like an Olympic style, almost like the X Games, but just for bicycles. And they're there. Like, they could have easily just thrown money at it and not showed up, but they're personally there to support, and that's the type of guys they are. Like, they're just
that's dope.
Mad cool, down to earth. Not barefoot, but I'm pretty sure they were in the open. They were like in the Tevas or the open toe sandals, like, you know.
No, that's awesome, man. They're just like humble, good people, man. Just trying to share some love.
Yeah.
Serve ice cream, and obviously, I think that's probably why they're so successful, because they're so humble and down to earth.
Yeah.
Building really good relationships, like what you're saying is interacting with, no matter how big you are getting, you're still going to these events and focus groups and sharing your product.
You gotta meet people on the ground. That, like, you can't just be behind your computer. I mean, you can. People have had success doing that. That's one way to do it. But I think it's really important to like try to connect with people in person. That's all we have, man. Like, people are a little too isolated these days, I think. People like live in this digital space. They get too isolated. They don't like interact with humans enough. It's like, you connect with people in a real human way, like they're gonna remember it forever. You can make customers for life that way. So I think it's important to really like get out there and meet people in person.
Facts, man. Nothing's better than like that actual synergy between different people, and also especially if you want to grow a business, man. It's all about the relationships. I mean, that's how you and I started, right? You came and you're like, I knew Mike behind Mike's Hot Honey, and then I felt like I was more a part of your brand, which is why I was more of a spokesperson for it, because I was like, oh, this guy's like a real dude. He's coming to my shop. He's taking photos with his team. And we built a relationship, a business relationship, and that matters.
Yeah, it matters. It makes a big difference. And like, you know, it's hard. Like, I can't be everywhere. I try to visit,
of course,
like, as many places as I can, but I'm stretched pretty thin. But like, it's like you try to like meet as many people as you can who are making quality stuff with the product, and like, yeah, those relationships go a lot farther, because then you connect with somebody, you kind of learn about their business. We sort of learn about each other's business and figure out like how you can do something that's mutually beneficial, you know, mm-hmm. and like those types of things make a big difference in business.
You've done so many awesome collaborations. If you could collaborate with any brand or chef, who would it be?
Well, look, man, we've been in all of these pizzerias, right? We've done like all these, like, we collab with tastemakers all over the country. Then it trickled down to like, you know, small chains, regional chains. Then it trickled down to like smaller national chains. But we've never launched with any of the big four pizza chains. So like, for me, that would be like an epic moment for the brand. Like, there's an opportunity for one of these big four chains, and I'm talking Pizza Hut, Domino's, Papa John's, Little Caesars. There's an opportunity for one of those to step up and take this product to the masses on pizza, and it's going to be a special thing when it happens, and so far it hasn't happened. So Domino's, I'm looking at you. You know, they haven't done any menu innovation in a long time. They're making a quality product. They've got a lot of innovation on the tech side, on the ops side, you know, curbside delivery. They were the first to do the app, but not a lot of menu innovation. I think they're ready for it. So Domino's, if you're listening, holler at me.
Let's go, baby. That would be a sick one. That would be an explosion.
Bring back the Noid, too.
The what?
Do you remember the cartoon character, the Noid? He was like in the, I think it was like 80s, maybe early 90s they had him for Domino's in marketing. Maybe it was the 90s, I can't remember. He was like this like sort of antagonist, like cartoon character that was in their commercials. But yeah, man, like I really want to launch. I want to take the product to the masses in one of the big pizza chains, and so far we haven't done that. So like, you know, it's crazy to me that
it is wild.
We launched with DUNKIN before one of the big like pizza chains took the product. Like, I'm like, Pizza Hut did their own thing. Like, they did a hot honey, but it was, you know, it was hot honey in quotes, like, because like it wasn't actual like honey infused with chili peppers. It had honey as an ingredient, but there was also like some other stuff in there. So it was not like a pure hot honey. It wasn't the same thing, even though that's what they called it. So I don't think it was like the same experience for consumers. But yeah, that would be that's bucket list for me, is to like do something like that with one of the big pizza chains.
What brands inspire you the most?
You know, I look at some of the streetwear brands in New York that I think are really like doing awesome work in terms of like the way that they're able to build the brand through community, like Awake New York. They're on Orchard Street on the Lower East Side. I just think like the way they're able to roll out collaborations, and you know, the way they have like real people from their community modeling their stuff. It's not like they're not just picking up random models. Like, the people wearing their clothes are actual people. I think it's inspiring to see like how some of the New York streetwear brands operate. Like, you know, Awake New York is really inspiring. I mean, you see what like Ronnie's done with Kith and all of the collaborations they do, and they're just so smooth with the way they roll everything out, and like it's so timely with everything. ALD, like they're another one, just like they just dropped their all the stuff for like their fall winter collection. It was like absolutely just like destroyed. Like just it's so cool to see those guys like and how they're operating and the way they collab. Like I know ALD did Porsche, Ronnie's done BMW at Kith. Like those guys, like they've extended a fashion brand into the car space. Like and like it's amazing. Like Awake, we just did the Awake block party. They had Coke there. They did a Coke can. Like, this is a streetwear brand, and they're co-branded with Coke. They did a custom embossed Awake New York Coca-Cola can. I got it sitting on my desk right now, but it's like...
They do things so effortlessly.
Crazy. They're just so good, and the pipeline is so full for them. They're just, like, constantly, like... rolling out these new collabs, and when you think you can't get any better, they got something new, and it's like, god damn, it must be so much work on the back end. I'd love to see like what goes on behind the scenes at those brands, because like they're just like constantly putting stuff out, and they're always like so dialed in with the execution. So that's inspiring to me. And then like some of these like legacy brands, like Dickies is a great example. Like Dickies is like they've been doing the same thing for I don't know. I think they just turned 100. It's workwear, you know. Like people fuck with Dickies because they know it's gonna last. Skateboarders, it's part of like that culture, but it's part of skateboarding culture because it's sturdy, you know. It's not like it's because it's functional, and like Dickies never strayed from that. They were just like, this is what we do. We make workwear. If these communities want to like adopt us, that's cool, but we're always going to be a workwear brand, and they're true to that. And so it's cool to see like brands that have just like stayed in their lane and just like focused on quality. So yeah, I think that trying to think of
honestly, it's like those brands. I feel like I'm inspired by you too, man, with your collaborations. Because outside looking in, that's what it looks like too, dude. I feel like you're doing things really effortlessly. I think you are actually making some of these brands cooler, like Utz, for example. Like I feel like they were kind of like they were a cool like vintage brand almost, but I feel like you gave them life, like steroids, and I feel like you like boosted them just as much as maybe you feel like they boosted you.
I mean, yeah, it goes both ways. I mean, Utz, the cool thing about Utz was, I mean, that partnership, originally there was like a larger national chip brand that had reached out to us, and they wanted to do a chip with us, and Utz approached us, and we were like, sorry, you already got a deal in place for a chip. And then the national brand had a change of heart with their marketing. They had some change in their marketing plans, and so we went back to Utz and we were like, really sorry, can we still do this? And I'm glad we ended up with Utz, because Utz is like the chip in New York City. They're a Pennsylvania brand, but like generations of New Yorkers have grown up like eating Utz and
like
getting Utz
like
from
the bodega, the bodega chip.
Yeah, you go in a bodega, you find Utz.
Yeah,
and so there was like a real like nostalgia for Utz and a connection that people have to Utz, and so like. I'm really happy we ended up with them and not like a bigger brand that didn't have that sort of like same emotional connection. Like we might have ended up with a bigger brand with wider distribution, but it wouldn't have had like the same story.
Yeah,
is what we got with Utz. Like Bush's is like they've been doing this for a long time, you know, and like they are experts in beans. And they're like, look, like we want to tap into this flavor profile, and we get to connect with this legacy food brand that has all this brand equity that has fed generations of people, and they get to tap into the authenticity of our brand and like as the creator of this category, and like the primary driver of this flavor profile that people seem to love. And it just like, it works for both of us.
Have you ever experimented with Mike's Hot Honey in a way that completely backfired? It's like, this shit doesn't hit.
I'm trying to think, like, it's so crazy because, like, it just, like, goes with everything. I'm not even just, like, Frank's is lucky they got that. Like, I put that shit on everything. Like, they're lucky they got that because, like, people say that about our product all the time, and I think it's more applicable in a way because you're not putting Frank's on ice cream. You're not putting Frank's in cocktails. Like, it's not as versatile as our product. But I'm trying to think, like, I don't know, dude. I know a guy, this guy, Brooklyn Bugs, he's an edible insect enthusiast, and he did a tasting of edible insects with our product, and I gotta say, like, not even Mike's Hot Honey could save, like a scorpion. It's like, you don't want to put that.
That's probably why your cholesterol's all fucked up, dude.
Listen,
just eating scorpions.
I don't want to hate on edible insects, but I mean, like, there's a lot of good protein there, but like, it's just not for me, man. That's just my personal thing. Like, there might be other people out there who love it, but it's just not for me.
Fair enough. So that's where you set the bar. It's like,
that's where I draw the line, man. It's like we couldn't save insects.
Well, we normally do this tradition at the. I appreciate you being here, man, and again, like, just talking your story and, you know, driving all over Hoboken. It means a lot to me. So thank you for that. And so we always end with the tradition of ending this podcast with a few different questions. One of them being is, if you could sit at a table with any three people, dead or alive, who would they be?
Three people, dead or alive. Well, I'm a big music fan. My dad is a jazz saxophonist. My grandparents were singers. They met singing in the 500 Club in Atlantic City. If I could do it, I'd probably sit at a table with my grandfather, Frank Sinatra, who he worked with back in the day, and maybe like Tony Bennett.
That's dope.
It's just like,
that's a vibe.
Yeah, it's just probably have some good Italian food.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, my grandfather, he was the MC at this place called the 500 Club in Atlantic City, and then he worked at the Latin Casino, which was in Philly, and then they moved out to Cherry Hill, New Jersey. But he worked with a lot of the Rat Pack guys and all that, and like he died when I was 8, so like I was really young, so I didn't get to like hear all the stories, but I would love to like
hear about them.
I'd love to sit around the table with those guys.
What would that last meal consist of?
Oh, come on, man. Got to have the meatballs, you know, probably fucking rigatoni, maybe like a veal parm, you know. I don't know if you ever been to Chef Vola's in Atlantic City. So Chef Vola's is cool because it's the only restaurant that I know that my grandparents dined at, for sure. They ate there. And I've eaten there. So, like, it's cool because I know that, like, we've eaten at the same place.
Yeah.
And it's in the basement of this little house in Atlantic City. It's been there for, like, 100 years. And it's kind of like this, like, Italian-American supper club type spot. The Rat Pack used to hang out there back in the day. And it's like when you sit down at the table, they send a runner to the liquor store down the street to get a bottle of whatever you want. So you tell them, like, I want a bottle of Sangiovese, and they, like, send a guy to the liquor store, and then they call you, and they're like, they have this, this, and this, and these are the price points. And, like, you tell them what you want, and then they come back, and then you pay for the bottle in cash, and they serve the drinks, and then they run dinner service. But, like, their parms, like, veal parm, eggplant parm, chicken parm, it does not get better than Chef Vola's. Like, it's crazy. Urge anybody in Atlantic City, got to go to Chef Vola's. Amazing spot.
Now I'm craving chicken parm for sure.
But not everybody. It's rare that you get a good one. That's the thing. Like,
it's because the simplest things are the most difficult thing to execute. It's like pizza, bagels, sandwiches, chicken parm. Like, yeah, you've tried it. You've been to countless bagel stores and pizzerias. You know how it is.
So what's the secret? Explain to me this thing with bagels. Why is it that so few places can make good bagels, and why is it that when you leave the New York metro area, it's impossible to find good bagels.
I mean, that's a two-part question, right? I would say the first part of that would be the process, man. The love and care you put into each part, right? And I mean that literally, figuratively and literally. So, for example, like one, the mixer that you're using. You have to have the right mixer, either a barrel mixer or a spider. The products that you put into it, either you're using brown sugar or malt, or you're using what type of water you're using, if you're putting in too much sugar or salt ratio and yeast. Because at the end of the day, it's just salt, sugar, yeast, flour. But it depends on and what components you're using. So it's like, are you using raw yeast or using the powdered yeast, right? So it's like that for the dough itself. You got to make sure it's proofed properly. You can't just because if you don't allow a 24-hour fermentation process, it could just get super dense and stale. You know what I'm talking about? When you eat a bagel and you're like, dude, this shit's like a rock. It's because they're not proofing it properly. And then, of course, the next step of the actual baking process is the boil. You don't need Jersey water and New York water. It's not. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
It's all about the boiling process because it creates that crisp texture on the outside.
Yeah.
And then when you bake it into the oven, you have to have the right oven. You're not putting it on sheet trays. You're putting it on fucking wood. Cedar planks. That's what I use. With this beautiful burlap. I use cedar planks.
Yeah.
And then that burlap is what creates that steam. And the cedar is actually what creates the aroma inside of the bagel. So simply said, bro, it's the dough. You got to make the dough right. You got to allow it to proof properly. You got to boil it. You got to bake it. And those simple things, if one of those things is off, it completely fucks everything up.
Yeah.
Big time.
When I leave the New York metro area, I see a lot of bagels that have too much cornmeal on the bottom.
Yes.
It's just super heavy on the cornmeal.
Yeah, and then it's because also they're just putting it on, they're doing cornmeal on sheet trays and then just baking it.
Yeah.
And then, or using rack ovens rather than allowing that cornmeal. If you put it on the wood planks when you're rolling it on the boards, but the moment you slide it into the water, the cornmeal gets erased. So it's actually a testament to show that it's not boiled. If it's boiled, there won't be cornmeal on it.
Is your oven a fish oven?
Yeah.
So it's like the rotator deck, the planks that rotate around.
Yeah. So it's all about the rotational oven. So it's either, and it could be fish or cutler. It doesn't really matter. It's more so make sure to get that heat temperature of 500. But that's why it's so difficult to scale. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I got to figure out either I'm going to scale this thing or pivot and open up a subcategory bagel concept to then scale.
Yeah.
It's got to be one or the other, man, because bagel needs to be fed to the masses, and I just want to too, man.
It does, and nobody's done. Bagels at scale, right? You got Einstein's. Are they the biggest chain in the country?
Yeah, number one, Manhattan Bagels, but number one is Einstein for sure.
Brugger's is Northeast.
Yep. But no one's done it at scale in the way that I think it deserves to be.
No one's done great bagels at scale.
I don't know why, but maybe we'll be the first ones to do it, you know?
I sure hope so.
I hope so too, man.
The rest of the country, it's you go to California and you find a good bagel in California, you're not even going to be able to get to it because the line's going to be so long. Mm-hmm. It's just
And they get so artsy with it, which is dope. I love the artisanal side of the bagel stores, but nothing's better than just a classic, well-done shop. Maybe obviously I'm bias in that thought process, but I love, and also efficiencies, man. If you're ordering a bagel and you order it, you're not getting it. You're getting your sandwich in under 10 minutes. That's a fact.
I don't want to name names and there are some good bagels in California, but I don't want to name names. But I was at a bagel spot. I'm people are lined up, and I get to the front of the line. I'm all right, get the bagel. It was a lender's bagel.
I believe it, dude.
It was a lender's bagel, and people were lined up for that shit.
It's crazy.
These people have lost it.
Yeah, man.
There's just not enough good bagels out there. So, yeah, there's definitely an opportunity for somebody. There are places making good bagels outside of New York, but they're few and far between. And then, there's just definitely, no chains that are doing it at the level that the independents are doing it. And, yeah, I love a bagel.
Hell yeah, bro. Mr. Mike Hot Honey himself, I appreciate you. Thank you for being on the Outliers Menu Podcast.
Oh, my God. Thank you for having me.